So there have already been a number of good videos tackling one side of this idea of what it means to be a hero in HeroAca and overall what they represent in that universe. A lot of which was catalyzed by the appearance of the hero killer stain. I think it's a concept that's been fleshed out pretty well, so instead of trying to find some new or bold take on the subject, I want to shift the focus ever so slightly to something that I don't think's been mentioned enough. I don't want to talk about what it means to be a hero. I want to discuss why people in the world of Boku no Hero Academia would want to be heroes in the first place. I know a lot of people will probably think it's a pretty black and white answer. I mean, heroes are awesome after all, right? It means saving people, wearing an awesome costume while you do it, and getting the fame and recognition to boot. And regardless of Stain's views, this is no doubt a factor for many aspiring do-gooders all over the world. On top of this, we've also had several characters outright state their motivations for wanting to be a hero. So far, Deku, Bakugo, Ida, HeroAca, and hell, even Mineta have all had their reasons outlined pretty well. But I still think there is an underlying factor that motivates just about everybody to at least consider this path. I say this because of one thing in particular that I don't think gets enough attention whenever we discuss Boku no Hero Academia. Its setting. Not the place, but the time. While we don't have an exact answer, I think it's safe to say HeroAca takes place at least a century in the future, if not more. For one, it's stated in the first episode that Deku's mom is a 5th generation quirk user, making Deku at least a part of the 6th generation. But then you also have to consider that Deku is the 9th holder of One for All, and the way All Might talks about the quirk, it seems as though one person per generation is deemed the wielder, so we can bump our estimate up another 3 generations. This is also assuming that the first holder of One for All was a part of the 1st generation of quirk users, which we can't say for sure if he was. At most we can say it was near the beginning of when quirks started first appearing. And then toss in some offhanded comments about how the superpowered chaos essentially resulted in technological stagnation, and you can see why HeroAca could reasonably be taking place in at least the 22nd century. So what does this all mean? Well, I bring up this timeline because it means heroes are not the hot new thing on the block. Quirks have been around long enough that there are strict rules and regulations around them, and same goes for heroes. Like we hear Deku say, it's a superhuman society. So at a certain point you think the whole allure of being a hero would wear off, right? You figure it would just be seen as the glorified public service job that it is. So why isn't it? Why does being a hero still seem to be as enticing a profession as it was when superpowers were merely a fantasy? To the point where it's still everyone's dream job going into high school. Well, I think it has to do with what I just mentioned, the strict rules and regulations regarding quirks. This is also something that I haven't seen touched on a ton, and while it's more explicitly stated in the manga, I'm not considering it a spoiler per se because it is something that's been pretty directly hinted at a number of times now. That said, if you are a complete purist, then stop watching this video and go read through chapter 78 of the manga, even though we actually get a look at what I'm talking about in as early as the 2nd scene of the 1st episode of Boku no Hero Academia. Deku is running on his way to school, and we see him encounter an ongoing brawl between a villain and several pros. As the fight progresses, we hear Kamui Woods list out the number of offenses the villain has racked up.
Assault, robbery,
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot a lot of you guys prefer subtitles.
and the illegal use of powers during rush hour traffic. You are the incarnation of evil.
Did you catch that?
The illegal use of powers during rush hour traffic.
It's a small detail that can get easily lost as the fight builds to its climax. But look around. If we hadn't just been explicitly told that 80% of the population possesses some kind of quirk, you'd be forgiven for thinking this is just another world with a handful of superheroes. This is because quirk usage in public is actually outlawed. That's why you don't see a ton of people jumping in to stop the supervillain during this scene, and it's why Deku, Todoroki, and Ida were so harshly reprimanded after their fight with Stain. It's because quirks are something that are so varied in nature and use that it's near impossible to account for everyone individually when it comes to the law. So you end up with an all or nothing scenario, and because one option is essentially superpowered anarchy, you can see why the government went with the alternative. But every action has its consequences, and I think it's this law that has led to the continued infatuation with heroism. Because as we've seen, quirks for those in the world of HeroAca are so much more than just superpowers. They are also a crucial part of their identity. Think about it. Their power is something that's been with them the majority of their lives, if not birth, so it's not a stretch to consider how much of an influence a quirk may have on one's personality or development. And you don't need to look further than Class 1A to find plenty of examples. Bakugo is very hot-headed and violent, HeroAca is incredibly bubbly and cheerful, Tokoyami is reserved and stoic, Aoyama is flashy, Ida is straight-laced and direct, and so on. So really think about that for a second. There's this piece of you that's been present since your childhood and is as indelible to you as something like your skin tone or height, and the government is actively telling you to suppress it. Suppress something that makes you unique. So, bearing that in mind, let's look at what being a hero in the world of Boku no Hero Academia actually means, just on a practical level. Having a hero license means you are free to use your quirk in public. It's part of your job. Thus, you are able to fully express your individuality, get paid for it, and be loved by people everywhere. Doesn't that sound like a pretty sweet gig? I think it makes more sense than solely an embedded fascination with heroism that has just persisted for all these years. Especially when you consider that as attractive as that job pitch was, we also see that being a hero doesn't necessarily guarantee you fame and glory. For a good majority, it's likely not the dream job they expected it could be when they were first starting out.
Huh? What are you talking about?
We both know this country's overrun with agencies right now. If you want to put food on the table, you've got to be willing to step on top of other heroes.
So while it may be those lofty aspirations that lure people into the profession to begin with, it's really the desire to be themselves that I think gets them to stay. And whether they know it or not, I believe this is a key underlying factor for every student at UA and around the world. And I'd go as far as to argue that it's not just students this applies to. I think you can make the case that this is also a factor when it comes to many villains of this universe. Because really pursuing the path of villainy is just another, albeit twisted, way to go about fulfilling this desire. They just prefer to not be state-sponsored good guys in order to be themselves. It really gives more credence to Best Jeanist's comment about how heroes and villains are cut from the same cloth. The underlying desire is present for both, and I think UA has also realized this. I bring your attention to the school's entrance exam. While it's not perfect as we see in the case of Shinso, I think it's clear UA is trying to appeal to even those who may be inclined to walk the path of villainy. Because while we don't know for sure what was on the written exam, we know for a fact that you can pass the practical portion without being the embodiment of righteousness. Case in point, Bakugo, who took first place with no rescue points whatsoever. And while yes, it wouldn't make much sense to tell the students about rescue points in the first place, the fact that there isn't a discrimination between the points, it's just the total that matters, tells me that UA is perfectly fine with building these aspects of heroism into their students during their time at the school. So someone could potentially be as devious as Shigaraki or Stain and still be accepted to the hero program. I think if UA, say, required even just one rescue point to have their overall score count, you could make an argument against this. And I grant you, it's entirely possible that people with these dark sides might set off red flags in the written or even practical exam, but I'm willing to bet that UA sets this relatively low bar for heroism in an attempt to curb the development of new villains, hoping to show them another way before it's too late. This is a lot of conjecture, but I think the pieces have always been there, we're just slowly figuring out how to fit them together. Regardless though, I think we can all agree that UA accepts a wide range of students. The superpowered population of HeroAca has always been one of my favorite things about the series, and it's clear people love discussing it. I love that it doesn't shy away from these issues and that the mangaka Kohei Horikoshi actually put effort into building a realistic and well-realized universe around these characters. It's a great bit of world building that I can't wait to see more of. Those are just my thoughts in analytical form though, and I want to hear your opinions. Do you think there is this underlying desire? If not, why do you think the public fascination with being a hero persists as much as it has? Whatever your thoughts are, you can let me know down below. Thank you as always for watching, and an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, PenguinPandaZero, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, James Morton, and everyone else for generously supporting me. If you would like to support me and help make more videos like this possible, you can click on the right to visit my Patreon page, check out the rewards, you can click on the left to subscribe, click the middle to watch more of my content, feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.